My name is Amelia Grant. I'm 32 years old, and I'm the CEO of a company my father built from nothing and almost lost because I trusted the wrong people. If you had seen my life a year ago, you would have thought everything was perfect. I had power, stability, a name people respected, a company that was growing faster than most expected, and a man in my life who seemed like he understood me in a way no one else ever had. And in my home, there was someone who had been there longer than anyone else, someone I trusted more than I realized, someone who had watched me grow up, someone I never questioned. Martha wasn't just a maid. That's what people would call her if they saw her from the outside. But to me, she was part of my life. She came into our house when I was 8 years old, not long after my mother passed away. At that age, you don't understand grief properly. You just feel the absence of something you can't explain. The house became quieter. My father became more distant, not because he didn't care, but because he didn't know how to handle both loss and responsibility at the same time. And in that silence, Martha filled the space. She was calm, gentle, always present. She never tried to replace my mother. She never crossed that line, but she made sure I never felt completely alone. She would sit beside me when I couldn't sleep, bring me food when I forgot to eat, remind me to finish my homework, listen without interrupting. And over time, she became someone I didn't question. My father trusted her completely. Loyal people are rare, he used to say. And when you find one, you don't let them go. That belief stayed in our home for over 20 years, and it became the reason everything collapsed. By the time I turned 30, I had taken over Grant Logistics. Not because it was handed to me, because I earned it. I knew every system, every contract, every risk. I expanded the company, built partnerships, strengthened operations. I wasn't trying to live in my father's shadow. I was building something even bigger, and for a while, everything worked until my father's health started to fail. At first, it was small. He got tired more easily, missed a few calls, repeated things he normally wouldn't. The doctors said it was manageable: medication, routine, care, and Martha took control of that immediately. She knows his habits, I told myself. She's been here longer than anyone. She handled his medication, his meals, his schedule, everything. And I trusted her, because I never imagined the person closest to us could be the one slowly breaking everything. Around that same time, Ryan entered my life. If you saw him, you would think he came from money. Everything about him looked polished: the way he dressed, the way he spoke, the confidence he carried. He didn't try to impress me. That's what made him different. I don't like pretending, he told me once. I just like being around people who understand what it takes to build something real. At the time, that felt honest. Now I know. It was rehearsed. He didn't chase me, didn't push. He just stayed close, steady, reliable. And after years of carrying everything alone, that felt like something I needed. What I didn't know was that Ryan wasn't random. He wasn't someone who entered my life. He was placed in it. He was Martha's son. And the version of Martha I trusted was not the version she truly was. Ryan didn't come into my life like someone trying to take something. He came in like someone who already belonged. That's what made it dangerous. He met my father within weeks, sat across from him at dinner like he had done it 100 times before. Calm, respectful, careful with his words. He listened more than he spoke, which impressed my father. Good man, my father said to me once after Ryan left. He doesn't try too hard. That means he knows who he is. I remember smiling when he said that, because I thought the same thing. Looking back now, I realize how perfectly they played their roles. Martha never questioned Ryan, not once. That alone should have told me everything. Any protective person would ask questions. Who is he? Where did he come from? What does he want? But she didn't. She welcomed him, quietly, like she already knew him. Because she did. But I didn't. At that time, everything felt like it was finally settling. My company was growing. Ryan was steady. Martha was taking care of my father. It felt like I finally had balance. That's when things started changing. Not suddenly. Not in a way that would make you panic. Small things. So small you could ignore them. A document approved faster than usual. A payment processed early. A contract slightly altered. Things that didn't seem wrong, but didn't feel right either. I noticed, but I didn't react, because nothing had broken yet. Then one afternoon, I received a call from my finance manager. Her voice was hesitant. "Amelia, did you approve the North Line transfer?" I frowned. "What transfer?" There was silence on the other end. Then she said quietly, "Ryan signed it." That moment didn't explode. It didn't feel dramatic. It felt quiet, like something inside me had just shifted. Ryan didn't have that authority. When I asked him about it, he didn't deny anything. "I was helping," he said calmly. Helping. That word again. "I didn't ask for help," I replied. He smiled slightly, not defensive, not guilty, confident. "I'm part of your life," he said. "That includes your responsibilities." That sentence stayed with me longer than I expected, because it sounded right, but it felt wrong, and I couldn't explain why. After that, things didn't stop. They increased. More approvals, more involvement, more quiet decisions made without me. And at the same time, my father got worse. Not gradually, not naturally, faster, too fast. He became forgetful, confused, weak in ways I hadn't seen before. There were moments when he didn't recognize conversations we had just minutes earlier. Moments where he repeated the same sentence 3 times. Moments where he looked at me like he was trying to remember who I was. And every time, Martha was there, holding his medicine, guiding him, speaking softly. "She's taking care of everything," I told myself. She always has. That trust blinded me until one moment changed everything. It was raining that evening. I remember it clearly, the kind of rain that makes everything feel heavier. I came home earlier than usual, no calls, no warning. I walked straight to my father's office, and that's when I saw it. Documents spread across his desk. Property papers, company shares, authorization forms. I stepped closer, and my name wasn't on them. Ryan's name was. My chest tightened. Not panic, not fear, something deeper, something that told me this wasn't right. The next morning, I asked my father about it, gently, carefully. "Dad, did you sign some documents yesterday?" He looked at me, his eyes cloudy. "I signed what you told me to sign," he said. Everything inside me went still. "I didn't tell you to sign anything." He frowned, confused. "You were here," he said slowly. "You told me it was important." I wasn't there, and that's when it hit me. This wasn't confusion, this was manipulation. But suspicion isn't proof, and I needed proof. That's when I called Daniel. I hadn't spoken to him in over a year, not since the divorce. Back then, I believed he wasn't enough for my life, not ambitious enough, not strong enough. I was wrong about that. 2. When he answered, his voice didn't change. "Amelia?" No hesitation, no tension, just my name. "I need your help," I said. There was a pause, not of doubt, of understanding. What happened? And for the first time, I told someone everything, not emotionally, not dramatically, just facts. Daniel listened, didn't interrupt, didn't react. When I finished, he said something simple. "Come to my office." That was the beginning of everything. Daniel didn't rush. That's what I noticed first. He didn't jump to conclusions, didn't accuse anyone, didn't react emotionally. He worked, quietly, carefully. He reviewed documents, checked signatures, analyzed timelines. Then he asked for medical records. That part confused me at first. "What does that have to do with anything?" I asked. He looked at me, calm. "Everything," he said. That was the moment I realized. He was seeing something I wasn't. And when he found it, everything changed. Daniel didn't explain everything immediately. He never did. That was one of the things I used to misunderstand about him. I thought silence meant weakness. Now I understood. It meant control. He spent the next few days going through everything I gave him. Every document, every signature, every timeline. And then he asked me something I didn't expect. "Who gives your father his medication?" I frowned. "Martha," I said. He nodded slowly. "And no one else checks it?" "No," I replied. "She's been doing it for years." That's when he looked at me in a way that made something inside me shift. Then that's where we start. At first, I didn't understand what he meant. But Daniel wasn't guessing. He was building. He requested medical records, prescription histories, doctor reports. Then he compared them. And that's when everything became clear. The dosages didn't match. The medications my father was prescribed were not the ones he was consistently receiving. Some were stronger than necessary. Some were mixed in ways they shouldn't be. Not enough to kill, but enough to weaken, to confuse, to control. I remember staring at the report in silence. "This isn't an accident," I said quietly. Daniel shook his head. "No," he said. "This is a system." That word stayed with me. A system. Not a mistake, not a moment, a plan. And suddenly, everything made sense. My father's confusion, his weakness, the documents he signed. He wasn't losing control naturally. It was being taken from him, slowly, carefully. And the person doing it was someone we trusted more than anyone else. Martha. I didn't feel anger in that moment. I felt something colder, understanding, because now I wasn't guessing anymore. I knew. And once you know, everything changes. Daniel didn't stop there. He traced financial movements, accounts, transfers, hidden transactions, and every path led to Ryan. Not directly at first, but carefully, layered, structured. Money moved through different accounts, different names, different routes, but the destination was always the same. Ryan, Martha's son. That was the moment the full truth settled in. This wasn't just betrayal. This was inheritance theft. Planned over years, executed with patience, built on trust. And I had given them everything they needed. Access, belief, time. That realization should have broken me, but it didn't. Because something inside me had already changed. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was thinking, and Daniel saw it. "Good," he said quietly. "Don't rush this." "I'm not," I replied. And for the first time, he gave a small nod. Approval. That moment mattered more than I expected, because Daniel didn't give approval easily, which meant one thing. I was finally seeing things clearly. The next phase wasn't emotional. It was strategic. We began collecting everything, not just proof, control. Medical reports were verified by independent doctors. Financial records were backed by forensic auditors. Every signature was analyzed. Every timeline reconstructed. There was no room for mistakes, because if I was going to end this, it had to be final. Weeks passed, and during that time, I acted normal. That was the hardest part. Sitting at dinner with Martha, watching her serve food like nothing was wrong, listening to Ryan speak like he belonged in my life, smiling, responding, acting like I didn't know, because they didn't know. That I knew. And that gave me power. Real power isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It waits. And when it moves, it ends everything. The day everything came together felt strangely calm. Not dramatic, not emotional, just final. I asked Ryan to meet me at the office. He arrived like he always did. Confident. Relaxed. Martha came with him. That was interesting. She didn't usually involve herself in business conversations, but that day, she did. That told me something. They thought they had already won. They thought this meeting was just another step in taking everything. I stood behind my desk, watching them. For a moment, I said nothing, and that silence made them uncomfortable. Ryan spoke first. "What's going on?" he asked. His tone was casual, but there was something underneath it. Expectation, control. I picked up the file from my desk, thick, heavy. Everything inside it was truth. And truth doesn't need volume. It only needs timing. "You've been busy," I said calmly. Ryan smiled slightly. "I always am." I looked at Martha. "You too." For the first time, she didn't pretend. She held my gaze, cold, steady. "You should have paid more attention," she said. There it was. No softness, no mask, just truth. "I trusted you," I replied. She smiled. "That's why it worked." Ryan stepped forward. "This is business, Amelia." I shook my head slowly. "No," I said. "This is theft." And I placed the file on the desk. The sound echoed in the room. Heavy, final. For a second, no one moved. Then Ryan opened it. His expression changed. Not slowly, immediately. Martha leaned forward, reading, and for the first time, I saw something I had never seen in her before. Fear. Real fear. That was the moment everything shifted. And then the door opened. Daniel walked in, calm, composed, exactly the same as always. "Everything has been filed," he said, his voice steady. "Fraud, financial manipulation, illegal asset transfer, and medical interference." Silence. Thick, heavy, final. And just like that, their world ended. Daniel didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Because the moment he spoke, everything in that room shifted. Ryan was still holding the file, but his confidence was gone. It wasn't completely replaced with panic yet, but it was cracking. And Martha, she didn't move at all. She just stared at the papers like she was trying to figure out where it all went wrong. "You won't prove this," Ryan said finally, but his voice didn't sound the same anymore. It wasn't calm. It wasn't controlled. It was tight. And for the first time, uncertain. Daniel didn't even look at him. "It's already proven," he replied. And that's when I realized something important. I didn't need to fight anymore. The fight was already over. The police arrived faster than I expected. Not dramatic, not loud, just final. 2 officers walked in, calm and professional, and for a second, no one spoke. Ryan tried to say something, but even he knew it wouldn't matter. Martha didn't speak at all. She just looked at me, and for a moment, I saw something different in her eyes. Not anger, not pride, something closer to defeat. "You raised me," I said quietly. I don't know why I said it. Maybe because I needed to. Maybe because I needed her to understand that this wasn't just business to me. This was personal. She didn't apologize. She didn't explain. She just said something I'll never forget. "You were never supposed to keep it." That sentence stayed with me long after they were gone, because it told me everything. This was never about opportunity. This was never about a mistake. This was always the plan. Ryan tried to resist when they took him, not physically, but with words. "You don't understand what you're doing," he said to me. I looked at him, calm, steady. "I understand exactly what I'm doing." And that was the last thing I said to him. After they were taken away, the room felt different. Quieter, lighter, but not peaceful. Not yet. Because even though everything was exposed, everything still had to be repaired. The next few weeks were not easy. People think once the truth comes out, everything just goes back to normal. It doesn't. There were investigations, legal procedures, meetings, endless documents. Daniel handled most of it. Carefully, thoroughly, the same way he handled everything. The charges were clear: fraud, illegal transfer of assets, medical manipulation. There was no way out for them. In court, they tried to defend themselves. Ryan claimed he was helping the business. Martha claimed she was protecting my father's interests. But evidence doesn't care about words. Every document, every record, every timeline, it all pointed to the same truth. And the judge saw it clearly. The verdict didn't take long. Both of them were sentenced. And just like that, the people who had spent years building a plan to take everything from us lost everything themselves. When I walked out of that courtroom, I didn't feel victory, not the way people expect. I felt quiet, because this wasn't just about winning. It was about understanding how easily trust can be used against you, understanding how close betrayal can live to you without you noticing, understanding that strength isn't just about building something, it's about protecting it. My father slowly began to recover. It wasn't immediate, it wasn't perfect, but he became clearer, stronger, more like himself. One evening, I sat with him in the living room, the same place where Martha used to bring us tea. He looked at me and said, "I don't remember signing those papers." "I know," I said softly. He nodded slowly. Then he looked at me again. "You handled it." That was all he said, but it meant everything. Because coming from him, that was trust. Real trust. The kind that isn't blind. The kind that's earned. And then there was Daniel. He never asked for anything. Not once. He didn't remind me of the past. Didn't question why I called him after everything. Didn't bring up the way I left. He just stayed. Helped when needed. Spoke when necessary. and gave me space when I needed silence. One evening, after everything had settled, we were sitting in my office. No pressure, no crisis, just quiet. "You didn't have to help me," I said. He looked at me for a moment. "I know," he replied. That answer stayed with me because it wasn't about obligation, it wasn't about proving anything, it was about choice. And that's when I realized something I should have understood years ago. The right person doesn't compete with you. They don't try to control you. They don't try to take what you've built. They stand beside you quietly, consistently, and they stay. This time, I didn't walk away from that. Today, I'm still running my father's company, stronger than before, more careful, more aware, but not afraid. Because now I understand something I didn't before. Power isn't what you build, it's what you protect. And trust is something you give carefully, not because people don't deserve it, but because the wrong person will use it against you. So if you're listening to this and you've ever trusted someone who was quietly working against you, I want to ask you something. Would you stay silent or would you take everything back? Because I didn't stay silent, and I don't regret it. If you believe in protecting what you've built, type, "I take my power back," and remember, not every betrayal breaks you. Some of them reveal who you really are.